What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Character Forge. This is episode 7 of the Character Forge, and we're going to be going over another build with you today. Now, if you haven't tuned into Character Forge before, this is a show where I go over character builds for tabletop RPGs. Specifically, right now we're going over Dungeons and Dragons, but in the future I will be adding things like Pathfinder and Star Wars and Warhammer and other things as well. I'm sure you've seen a lot of videos on YouTube that tell you how to make the most broken character in D&D, how to break the game, how to do the most damage, min-maxing. This show is not about doing that. This show is actually about creating characters that are fun and thematic to roleplay. I go through a build, I try and think of an idea that fits the build for a character. I really try to fit in the background and the feats and everything else you're going into to try and make a character that really fits into a role-playing scenario. So there is actually a poll if you want to go to the Patreon account here. It should be free to do the poll. So you can go in there, you can click, and you can tell me what you want to play. If you like playing certain classes or certain play styles, there's free polls up there and you can actually vote on those. The last votes we got were actually the Warlock Bard hybrid, so that's what we're going to be going over today. Now on the Patreon account there also, I do have every single character that I'm making here on the Character Forge, starting at level 1 as an editable PDF, and that's under the, I think it's Buy Me an Ale Patreon subscriber, which is really the only one I have right now. But hey, if you want to buy me an ale, you get every single character that I've written, along with the written guides that I have as well, as an editable PDF starting at level 1. And of course, if you just want to go there for the polls, those are absolutely free and you can go there and vote at any time. So I present to you the Bard Warlock, or as I like to call it, the Doomed Poet. So let's think about the story here a little bit. You were a bard, you went to college, but you were mediocre. You were never top of your class, you were never the most beautiful or handsome. And something about that just really put you on edge. You needed something more. Maybe you found this dark tome of knowledge, this dark tome belonging to your patron. Within this tome, you found ways that you can make yourself beautiful beyond all reason, or charismatic as a, I don't know, what's charismatic? I'm not a bard. As charismatic as a burlesque dancer, let's say that. So then what did you do? You sold your soul for Eldritch Blast. No, really. You sold your soul to become someone better. You sold your soul to be the perfect you. But as your character evolves and progresses through the story, as you build more and more into the bard and leave the sort of warlock behind, your character wonders, was selling your soul really worth it? And is who you are now even a better person? Or is it just a facade? I think this is a really cool character to play, but also it would be great as just an NPC for one of your games. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to start off with Warlock, even though this is more of a bard-centric character, and you really early on you get the Eldritch Blast, and you get ways to deal damage. Now, if you want to be strictly a support character and you don't really care that you're getting Dex instead of Wisdom as a saving throw, then you can start off with Bard and go the first 3 levels there if you want. Now, this build is very flexible, so you can actually go Bard or Warlock and you can kind of shift between the levels as much as you want. The weaknesses of doing this, however, is you're not going to be having those really powerful spells by doing this. You're going to be kind of trading those off for those Warlock attributes that you get, and of course, Eldritch Blast. What is the main purpose of this build, and what are the strengths and weaknesses of this build? Now, the thing about this build is you're going to be really good at things like intimidation and performance and deception. So most of your outside of combat abilities rely upon deceiving your opponents. You're going to be really good at supporting your allies, as well as dealing some good damage with things like Eldritch Blast and some other spells in the future. So you have a lot of different options there, whether you want to deal damage or you want to support your team or you want to just shut down the enemies. So for level progression, I like to start off with Warlock and get at least 2 levels into the Warlock. And unlike most builds, I'm not going to be going College of Swords and Hexblade. I'm actually going to be using, as I said, the words as my weapon in this build. So as my patron, I'm going to take the Fiend. Of course, you get your Pack Magic, you get your Dark One's Blessing. Now, as far as our Eldritch invocations go, I like to get, of course, the go-to Agonizing Blast. That is going to make sure that you get to add your Charisma modifier to your Eldritch Blast, and is going to give you a nice beefy amount of damage. As far as my second one goes, I'm going to choose something a little bit different than most people, and I'm actually going to go the Mask of Many Faces. I like it a lot with this build because we're going upon deceiving people, and the background that we're going to be taking, and I'll talk about that later, is going to be the Faceless one. A third great option for this, and one that we can pick up later if you want, is actually the Cloak of Flies. I like that one a lot too. Another underrated one, not used so often, but having flies buzz around you to intimidate your enemies and having that plus modifier, being a bard, to intimidation as well, your intimidation score skyrockets and you get advantage. So that's super cool. It's a much better way than doing something like Friends or something where you cast a spell and then they're aware of it. This is just straight up being intimidating. You're not trying to fool anyone, you are just terrifying. So this is where things are going to change a lot for the builds. You can sit there and only go 2 levels into Warlock if you want, but I suggest going at least 5 so you can upgrade that Eldritch Blast so you get 2 of them. Because what's better than 1 Eldritch Blast? That's right, you guessed it. 2 Eldritch Blasts. At level 4, of course, you will get your ability score improvement, and for that one, I like to go with Shadow Touched. I like to get Shadow Touch because it gives us a +1 to Charisma, and if you go with the half-elf race, like I kind of suggested going with, then you can actually already have 18 Charisma. You get that +1, the little boost you needed to just get all the way up to the top, and now you also get to cast Invisibility, and you get another choice of spells as well. Now, if you wanted to learn Disguise Self here instead of before, without going with that Mask of Faceless, you could wait until this point and you could also get Disguise Self here. But I like getting a different spell because having so many different spells as a bard is so awesome. You get to have all these different choices and you are so versatile. So something to me like Cause Fear really works thematically with this build and I love it. And of course after level 4 we hit level 5, which of course means Eldritch Blast, second Eldritch Blast. If you want to continue to go down this path, I suggest getting the next level and just kind of bumping it up one more notch in the Warlock and going for level 6 because you get the Dark One's Own Luck. The Dark One's Own Luck is going to help you succeed where you otherwise could have failed by rolling an additional d10. Now we're going back to the Bard. Now, you don't have to go 6 points directly into Warlock. You could go 2 points into Warlock and then start Bard. If you really want to get that roleplay going with your Bard and be able to support your teammates, that's a great way to go. I would suggest going 3 levels into Bard, then if that's the case, go 2 levels, then 3 levels. That way you kind of get that jump start in the Bard and you can choose your college. Now for the proficiencies, I like to choose Performance, and really between the 3 abilities of Performance, Deception, and Intimidation, you can get away with pretty much anything charismatically. And so for the college, I'm going to be choosing the College of Glamour. Now, why are we going College of Glamour? College of Glamour fits really well with this build because if you're wanting to go that support route, you can actually give temporary HP to your entire party. You also do get Enthralling Performance, which is a great charm ability. Now, after we have those first levels into Warlock, at least 2, going up to 5 or 6, and we have 3 levels into Bard, the real sort of endgame build happens. And what we're going to do is just pump Bard until then. We're just going to keep going Bard and we're going to forget about Warlock. By going with Bard, you're going to increase those spells to get a little bit more powerful spell slots. Unfortunately, because we double dipped a little bit, you're not going to be able to get anything above a 7th level spell slot. You could get 8th level spell slots if you only took maybe 2 levels into Warlock, but really, for this build, if you want to be able to do damage and do something else on your turn besides support, I suggest getting those 6 levels into Warlock. So as the first feat, I like to pick up either Shadow Touched or Fade Touched. Both of these will give you a +1 to your Charisma, which will bump it up to that 18 that we need, and it will give you extra abilities, which of course, as I stated before, having more abilities on this build is just so awesome. Now the second ability that I like to get as a feat is actually Inspiring Leader. You don't have to because temporary HP in 5e is not the greatest. We already have a couple different ways of giving the party temp HP, and this is going to be another one. If you don't know how temporary HP works, quick little description, you take one or the other and you don't get to stack them. So you can't keep stacking temporary HP shields. If you give someone a buff, they either take it or leave it, basically. It is a good one to go with, however, because our charisma is going to be so high, we are going to be able to give temporary HP shields to our whole party after every short rest. Now you pair that with a Song of Rest with a Bard, and you're going to be wanting to take short rests all the time. Every time you take a short rest, you're going to be able to heal your team up and then give them a temporary HP shield. It's a really awesome combo, and it's really going to help support your team throughout all those dungeon crawls and everything else you're doing. Now, another great one to go with as far as feats go is Actor. Actor is going to be another one that's going to be a half feat, so it's going to give you +1 to Charisma. On top of that, it's going to give you advantages on playing that second persona. Anything that is required to impersonate someone or be someone else, you're going to have advantage on it. So it really works with the build of being that sort of faceless one. And of course, the other ones that I can suggest is just going straight stats and making sure your charisma is boosted up to 20. Now going quickly into the little cantrips we're going to pick up. And of course, the first cantrip is going to be, what was that? Oh, what was that? Why do we sell our soul? Eldritch Blast. That's right, you got it. You're catching on. You can also go with the more common ones like Mage Hand, Minor Illusion, Prestidigitation. Those are all fantastic ones to have. I think going with something like Message is also very thematic for the build and fits really well because we are all kind of using our power with words with this build, and Message is just perfect for that. And of course, you could also go with something like Friends because let's face it, we have more of the same thing and it's just giving us more and more of what our character is good at, which is basically manipulating people with our dashing good looks or intimidating the hell out of them. So now we get our level 1 spell slots, and what are we going to be taking for level 1 spell slots? Eldritch Blast. Unfortunately, we can't take another Eldritch Blast, but you can get Silvery Barbs, which is just as good, but in a different sort of supporty way. If you don't know what Silvery Barbs is, use it now, and you will love it forever. Just use it. It's amazing. You should also get something like Detect Magic if you're going to go support. Detect Magic, you need one on your team at all points and all times, and since we have a good amount of spell slots to use, Detect Magic is going to be a great one to have. Since we're going with the sort of poet build and we're using our wards as weapons, something like Tasha's Hideous Laughter is also a fantastic ability. Of course, you also have things like Sleep, Fairy Fire, and Healing Word for support ability. Also going with something like Command is going to be great for the build because thematically it goes along with kind of what we're going for. And then as far as defensive options go, things like Hellish Rebuke or Protection from Good and Evil are also fantastic. Also, another really good one to go with would be Illusory Script. It's not the best ability in the game, but thematically it fits perfect with our character because, let's face it, we're a poet and we gotta write some shit. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire spell list of 2nd and 3rd and 4th level spells. At 2nd level, you get things like Invisibility, you get Hold Person, you get Silence, you get a lot more control over the battlefields, and continue to go on there, 3rd and 4th and 5th level. You can kind of just figure out exactly how you're building your character and make sure to have a nice sort of even amount of spells. So we have something to support, but also make sure you're not only going for charms, because if an enemy's immune to charms, then you're kind of screwed, right? So you want to make sure you have a nice balance. The reason we're getting so many spells and cantrips is because you should have something for every situation. All right, that's it. It's supposed to be a pretty quick and straightforward build. I'm trying to make these videos straight and to the point. I hope you got a lot from this video. Make sure to also visit the Patreon and go for those polls. Those are free and anyone can contribute. It kind of lets me know exactly what people are looking for, what they like to play, and even what games you like to play. Also, if you want to buy me an ale on there, of course, go right ahead. It really helps support me and the show, but also you get every single character and every single guide that I'm making, starting at level 1 as an editable PDF. That pretty much does it. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next time.
Eldritch Blast!